The feeling of underachievement or not unlocking your full potential is already a pretty negative feeling. But it's even worse for footballers because they only have a short window to achieve everything they've wanted to achieve. They don't get to go back to the age that they were at their prime, at their peak physical shape, and get a second chance at opportunities that they missed out. The three players I want to discuss in this video are three incredibly skilled players who, in my opinion, fell short to their full potential. Now, they already won in the game of life. These three guys have created generational wealth for their families and themselves doing something they love to do. But from a football legacy standpoint alone, these are three incredible players who, in my opinion, could have achieved so much more. It's crazy that I can sit here and claim that a World Cup winner didn't reach his full potential, but that's just how good Paul Pogba was. Paul Pogba was a pivotal player for the French national team for the World Cup 2018. He was very pivotal for Juventus when they got the Scudetto. He was even important to Manchester United when they won that Europa League in a time where post-Ferguson, it seems like they were never going to win accolades. Paul Pogba's skill set is incredibly unique and one that made him so valuable. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody that tall, that strong, but so technically gifted? His passing range was incredible. He could shoot from distance. He could do everything you wanted in the midfield position. But unfortunately, his move to Manchester United was just too premature. And he ended up becoming a player that was just misprofiled throughout his career. They didn't know whether to use him as a 6. They didn't know whether he was a box-to-box. They didn't know if he could play in that sort of a 10 role. And because he joined an absolute train wreck situation that is Manchester United, he missed out, in my opinion, on years where he could have continued to be the best. I mean, the Paul Pogba we saw at Juventus, the Paul Pogba we saw on the French national team, that's who he was able to be. That's what his capability allowed him to be a world-class level player. But unfortunately, you just don't get that at United, where they don't even know who the right manager is. They've had no longevity or success in that post-Ferguson era. I mean, just imagine if Paul Pogba was on the current Manchester United team, next to someone like Casemiro who could do the dirty work. That's when Pogba was at his best. And I look at the French national team because in that double pivot next to N'Golo Kante, I think that's where we truly saw what he's capable of. And he's an incredible player. I just think there was many years in his United career specifically where we could have seen him to his full potential. If he stayed at Juventus for a few more seasons, what could have happened? Because when I think about that Juventus team that made the Champions League final, Paul Pogba, Arturo Vidal, Marquisio, Pirlo, I think they just surrounded Pogba with the right pieces to really get the most out of him. United never did that, and unfortunately as football fans, it meant that we only got to see a short window of what Paul Pogba has in his locker. You know, it's funny, if I made this video 5 years ago, this player would not be on the list. But unfortunately, a lot has changed since 2018, and I have to include Eden Hazard now. When Eden Hazard was on Chelsea, he was one of the best players I've ever seen grace the Premier League. He passed the eye test with flying colors. Anybody that watched him on a week-in, week-out basis would see truly what he does for Chelsea. His incredible creative playmaking, when he was able to score goals in big opportunities. I mean, this is a guy that at times, for certain Chelsea teams, was the only outlet for attacking football. He was just incredible. And his move to Real Madrid unfortunately ruined the career of one of the best players we could have seen. I thought he would be one of the first guys to take over the throne post Messi and Ronaldo era. I mean, he was already one of the best players in the world when those two guys were playing, and he was carrying that Chelsea team at times. Even when you watched him play for the Belgium national team, it was so obvious that he was the best player on the pitch. They relied so much on him holding the ball up, the gravity he had by being able to pull defenders in with his dribbling and then make the right pass. But unfortunately, it just never made it for him at Real Madrid. We'll never truly know the reason. Is it partially because he didn't really take care of his body? You've heard interviews from guys like John Obi Mikel and others that have trained with Eden Hazard. It was clearly obvious that he relied on his talent more so than hard work. A guy that didn't really put in all that much effort into training, but he just knew how to show up in games. Could that have finally caught up to him? Some of the best players in the world we've seen that have longevity are people that take really good care of their health. Eden Hazard, based on other people's anecdotes and from what we've seen, isn't that guy. Or potentially it's from all those years of being absolutely kicked in the Premier League, the two-footed challenges, the little fouls here and there, what they did to his ankles. That could potentially be the reason. Regardless, it's another player that we got robbed of as footballing fans, where he just sat on the Real Madrid bench earning a fat salary without ever doing anything. Sure, he won a bunch of trophies, but no one's going to remember that because he played absolutely zero role or a pivotal role at all for Real Madrid. And it's a shame to see because the guy went from being one of the best players in the world to one of the biggest what-ifs that we've seen in the world of football. Last but not least, we get to the player that I think underachieved the most. My second favorite player of all time, and that is Neymar. Neymar had the potential and the hype around him to become truly one of the best players in the world, if not the best. I mean, how many kids do you know at 19 years old playing in Liga do Brazil be in the top 10 for Ballon d'Or rankings? And when I watched him play, it was just joga bonito again. We hadn't seen a player with his skill set since Ronaldinho. It was so fun to watch. And I felt like at Barcelona, once he transitioned to that move to La Liga and the physicality of being in a top 5 European league, we were seeing a player of immense quality. The connection he had with Messi and later with Suarez. We were watching some of the best football I've ever seen in front of our eyes. But unfortunately, he made a move that was just too premature. Going to PSG was the wrong decision. It was too early to have his own team. And more importantly, just going to PSG in general, no one was going to respect what he did domestically. Unfortunately, Ligue 1, nobody cares. PSG was winning titles before he got there, and they're probably going to win titles after he leaves because they're just dominating that league financially. He was only going to get judged based off the metric of the Champions League. So maybe if PSG wins in 2020, this is a different conversation, but they haven't. And unfortunately, despite Neymar having been PSG's best player in that tenure and the Champions League being a team-oriented trophy, most people are going to look at the accolades he didn't achieve rather than appreciate what the quality he did provide for us. I do think if he stayed at Barca, was a bit more patient, he could have gotten the throne from Messi. Barca would have been his team, and he probably would have been in a better position. Or if he had gone to another team that was able to build the proper pieces around him, he could have achieved more. These are the 3 players I chose for unfulfilled potential. There's a lot more. If you guys can think of players that you think I didn't discuss, leave it in the comments. I just think these 3 players, despite how much success they did have, both in terms of accolades and what they've achieved in the sport, they could have achieved so much more because they were just that good. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Your support means a lot to me. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.